I want to talk about how to make a drop down automatically submit a HTML form. I want to start off with just looking real closely at this content of this HTML page here. It has some razor markup, and this is some crude, just very simple HTML or razor markup to create a form, to end a form. So this is going to create a begin form tag, and this is going to have a it's going to render a end form tag. And this line right here is going to render the select box. I'm going to call that select tag drop down 1, and it's going to be populated with some options. And regardless of what the options are, we'll see what those look like. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And what we'll see is the drop down, the select tag. It's populated with some options. I just happen to populate them with some cars. If I look at the view source, I can see that there's a form tag on line 12 here. This is generated by the razor on line 17, and line 19, the razor on line 19 is generating this drop down, this select tag. Select tag, it's got an ID of drop down 1 and a name of drop down 1. That's what this drop down 1 here is. It's got two options, the Dodge option, Dodge Durango option, and the Chevy HHR option. And if I look at the drop down, I can see what Durango and HHR are the display values, Durango, HHR. But the underneath, the behind the scenes values are Dodge and Chevy. So traditionally when you want to submit a form, you have a button on a page that is the submit button. But what happens if I want to have this drop down when somebody selects one of these options for it to submit the form? Well, one of the ways you do that is you add an attribute to this select tag. And it's saying on the change, when somebody changes the value of the select box, on change of that, I want to submit the form, this form, instead of having a button that does that. So this drop-down list is the thing that created that select box. One of the options, there's a third parameter in here that's called HTML attributes, and you can kind of see it over here. And the way you do that is I'm going to new up a new HTML attributes, and I can set the attributes that I want in here. The right markup to put in here is onChange equals, and then what you want it to do. Now, what you want it to do will be to submit the form. And the way you do that is you write JavaScript to submit that form. One of the things in JavaScript you can do is you can just alert something. That'll show a nice little message box. So maybe we'll alert a word when somebody changes this. So I'm going to click Save, and I'm going to bring up my browser again, and I'm going to refresh. And I'm going to change it. Notice how it got an alert pop up that said test. I'm just showing that for the demonstration purposes of saying this is where you write the JavaScript. This right here, alert test, is JavaScript. This onChange is an HTML attribute. Let's look at the code that it wrote and when I do a view source. So we still have our select tag, we still have it named dropdown 1, but notice what it did here. It said onChange equals alert, which is the same thing we have over here, alert. Now what it did is it encoded the single quotes as this ASCII character representation. But regardless of whether that is, these ampersand, pound, 39, semicolons are attributed to these single quotes. And so this is the JavaScript that will run when the option changes, when somebody changes a selection. So what I'm going to do is the JavaScript to submit the form, I think I'm going to get this right, this.form.submit. And I will run that, or I'll close this out and refresh it. And I'm going to hit HHR. And I probably have the JavaScript wrong. I think it might be a function. So I'll refresh this. And I'll hit HHR. Oh, very quickly I can see this tab up here changed. Now I'm not doing much, but all I'm doing is calling form.submit. Maybe the way I can do that is back over here on my car controller, I can put a breakpoint. And regardless of the code that's in here that populates the cars, the Durangos and Chevys that we're seeing, what I want to show is that if I change my selection, it comes in here, my execution line comes to my car controller, to my index method, and starts execution here. So when I'm going to go ahead and click continue to let it run. But if I were to change it again, it'll submit that form and start calling the form action. So if I look at the view source, this says the form action is the car controller, and it's implied the index method on that controller. In fact, if we go to our view, I have this index controller on the car method, and that's what's generating the action part of this. So the car method, the index method on the car controller, and you can see here on the onChange it says submit this form. So it's going to actually send the data, what was chosen, to the car controller, to its index method. But here's the key of this video. This is the code that it takes to submit the form. This is the JavaScript right here that's highlighted to submit the form. This is what a submit button does. Behind the scenes, it's calling this.form.submit. And you have to have an HTML element or attribute, an HTML attribute on your select tag. So here's your select tag. Inside of that select tag is an ID attribute, name attribute, and an onChange attribute. They each have their different values. The ID attribute has dropped down 1 value. The name attribute has dropped down 1 value. And the onChange attribute has this JavaScript on the inside of it. So hopefully that helps you understand, gives you a way to make your select box, your drop-down box, your drop-down list, when somebody changes its value, to submit a specific form, and that form is this form tag at the beginning.